No, I don't was myself.
Oh, it was my team leader.
Huh?
That's the opposite.
I'm not listening to
Okay.
That is no status.
And here's the final page also. Two other things. So, sorry for the little delay. We got everything.
All 4 times. You gotta wait again. There's a
Right.
all 45. You have to
Where's the new special?
I don't know, but yeah.
Third and fourth. I should say.
Good
Putting it
question.
in the chat in case there's anyone.
Aren't there rules
You
about
ask
the
me that,
pages?
okay? Make sure.
I didn't know Rebbe Harris took over the Army Como, so
There's
this
a
is.
speech of the definition. Yeah, you sent the speeches.
Hey guys, it's time to settle down, even though we're in the stadium.
Okay. This is a chance to shut the door. Okay. Thumbs up? Tech crew? Okay. Good morning. Thank everybody for coming. It's been a busy Shabbos. But Baruch Hashem, quite wonderful Shabbos we had. Quick disclaimer before I even announce the topic of today's share is being the fact in Yeshiva this was graduation Shabbos and there was a lot of time invested for the Talmidim. So they made a program. On last week's Sunday, they already were asking me, what am I giving share on this Sunday? I have to put in the program. I don't necessarily have the next share waiting the moment the first share is over. It's okay. I knew I had to come up with a topic pretty quickly. So by Monday, I had my topic. I had this on Monday. It seems over the past couple days, a pretty major controversy erupted on the topic of the share that I'm giving. So much so, I was forewarned by some people, be very careful, you're walking on thin ice. This is quite a controversial topic. You don't know how many people are going to tune in and find what you say. The share does get disseminated. So, okay, I'm a little nervous about that. Don't obviously pass no lach l'maisa off this. But l'maisa, we already had the topic. We're ready to go with the topic. We just added layers and layers based on the updates that just happened. It was Friday afternoon when two of my chaverim contacted me. Did you hear about this? And I didn't. And they both sent me more marmakomos. Everyone's all excited about the share. Now, what's the share about? Another introduction. Last week, in the Jewish world, there were 4 events, which each event had more than 25,000 people in attendance. Now, I look around the room, pop quiz, tell me to my share, don't count. They might know these things. But there were 4 events that took place last week. Each of them had more than 25,000 people in attendance. I doubt there's anyone here in the audience right here. I'm not sure even the people watching. Can you name 4 events that each had over 25,000 people just last week? I'm not even sure, when it shows Kananahara where Klal Yisrael is at, that, Baruch Hashem, there are so many people and you can have a big event. It really is a big event. Now, it's interesting. I'm not sure how many people. I doubt there are people that went to all 4. I highly doubt, as I list off what the 4 were. I'll start this way. One was a wedding of the Gera Rebbe's child. That took place, I think, maybe Tuesday. It had 25,000, 30,000 people there, streets of Yerushalayim. Later that night, There was a second wedding in the streets of Yerushalayim, that of the Belzer Rebbe's grandson had a big wedding. We were just there. The whole plaza was packed. 30,000 people were there. Okay? So, two of them, technically, I don't know the exact time frame, the overlap. You probably could have gone from one to the other, just not drive. No traffic in Yerushalayim that day. Third event happened in New York City, just listing the historical facts. Happened in New York City last Sunday morning, morning, afternoon, is the Israeli Day Parade, which I believe they said had 40,000 people. And then last Sunday evening in Philadelphia, the Lakewood Yeshiva hosted an event called the Adirei HaTorah event, honoring the Talmidim in the Kollel of the Yeshiva and the supporters of the Yeshiva. 4 events in the Jewish world, each one easily over 25,000 people there. Quite amazing. I would like, today's share is focusing on the Adirei Torah event and a very interesting halachic shaila that came about from it. For this Adirei Torah event, the Lakewood Yeshiva flew in 2 Gedolim from Eretz Yisrael. Gedolei Ziknei Rosh Yeshivas from Eretz Yisrael. You have to pick a big speaker at an event like this. The easiest way to pick a speaker is, first of all, not someone from around. They picked 2 Chashava Gedolim. One was Dov Landau, the Rosh Yeshiva of Slobodka, he was 94 years old. Some might already term him the Gadol Hador on the passing of Gershon Edelstein, who we spoke about last week. And the second Adam Gadol is Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman, who, just to give a little perspective, who Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman is. Rav Meir Tzvi has been a Rosh Yeshiva for decades upon decades of a yeshiva called Rashbi, Shem Bar Yochai. It was actually a yeshiva started by his father. His father actually spent a lot of time, decades and decades ago, back there, near the kever. Rev Meir Tzvi Bergman, I believe, is, third, fourth, fifth generation Yerushalmi. This Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman happens to be the son-in-law, the only son-in-law of Rev Shach Zetzal, the Gadol Hador for decades. He was Chavrusas, he learned morning Seder with none other than the Stipler. He was Adam Chashav Ad Ma'od, huge Talmud Chacham. Adam God. On top of that, just to give a picture of who this Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman was, so he gave this drasha, which we're going to speak about, at this Adirei HaTorah event last week in Philly, right? You know the story. It was in the 76ers arena, and they were saying Lakewood was going for the fact that the basketball team shouldn't make it to the finals because that would that would be a problem with the event. So luckily the Celtics beat them, I think. But so this event, which took place over there in Philly, at the end of his drasha, Meir Tzvi Bergman did a phenomenal thing. He said he's going quote unquote off script, off the top of the Adirei Torah event. He wants to talk about something which really pains his heart. He was speaking, his speech was in Yiddish, Hebrew mix, yeshivish mix. End of his speech, he's speaking Yiddish, Hebrew, and talking about the plight of so many Jewish girls who are involved in quote unquote the shidduch crisis, sitting, don't yet have a shidduch, and it's a very, very tough situation. And he talked about an eitzah that he heard years ago from his father-in-law of Shach, to bench the kavana from a sitter is a schus for tremendous yeshuas, for shidduchim, and made a big push for that. But one of the most amazing things was, Then he says, I'd like to speak to those girls. I would like to speak in English. Now, realize this is a very yeshivish Lakewood event. Most, if not all, the speeches were in Yiddish. All the major speeches were all in Yiddish. But the end, the one person speaking English, the major address of Mayor Tzvi Bergman at the end of the speech, I remember hearing it. I heard it Sunday night, that clip. Something beautiful. I said to myself, I didn't know where Mayor Tzvi Bergman speaks English. I found out later he doesn't. Mayor Tzvi Bergman does not really speak English. He knows some words, could say some things. He doesn't speak English. So how did a 94-year-old Gaon give a speech over in front of 25,000 people in English? He practiced and practiced and practiced. So he'll be able to say it over in English so that American girls will understand the message of his Imon Noch B'Tzara and an Eitzah to help them out in Shidduchim. That's the type of Adam Gadol. We just spent the Shabbos. It's a big deal to get Chashav, 12th grade Talmid, to get up and speak in public. Imagine speaking in front of 25,000 people in a language which is not your tongue, which you just practiced and learned. But that's what he did. Now, that's the man that, we talked about the stadium, that's the speaker. But here's the big problem that happened. And Shiva. While he was flying on Thursday from Eretz Yisrael to attend this event Sunday in Philadelphia. Now the other speaker, Dov Land, I believe, had a family simcha and only flew out Motzei Shabbos. 94 years old, not easy. So much so, he came to the event. He attended the event. He didn't have any strength to speak. He didn't speak. So Mayor Tzvi Bergman is better for an older person. He flew out on Thursday. While he was in flight, Rahman al-Islam, a 70-year-old son of his, suddenly passed away. In flight, obviously, they consulted when to tell him. They told him, he tore Kriya. And the doctor said there's no way he could just turn around on the plane and go back to Eretz Yisrael to attend Levaya for his son. He physically can't do it. And originally, the talk was, okay, he's going to have to stay in Lakewood for Shabbos. Sit Shiva, begin sitting Shiva in Lakewood. Now they'll see, they figured, it's Mamish Avelos. No, fly back maybe Sunday. Missed the event. But then later, the plans seemed to change. And the Mayor Tzvi Bergman was going to stay for the event. Stay and speak at the event. And a psak was issued, we'll talk about that in a moment, by some poskim. And the Mayor Tzvi did show up at the event and gave a masterful drasha. And at this point we can say the rest is already history. But the halachic debate about this psak is something which is going on right now in the world, in the yeshiva world, halachic world. And I think it's a good topic to talk about and to clarify as best as we can. Really, within this exact case, it's very hard. The parties involved, I can't just call up now on the phone and get them to comment, because everybody's trying to get them to comment. And it's a big taram right now, this topic. So, don't know the details. It could be, we're saying this share today, Sunday, just a week after. Could be by the time someone listens to this. Could be greater clarification of what exactly went on. But we're going to try to explain the situation about Sherusham, whatever we know, the information we know today. So let's speak that out. Right? Obviously, a person in Avelos, a person toch Shiva. Now, just to clarify, the son was niftar on Thursday. The first 3 days of Avelos have the most chomer dikar halachas. Right? Obviously, for the kvura has more, but within this, once you pass the kvura, the first 3 days in general have the most Chamr Dika halachas. It was already past the 3 days by the time Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman stepped foot in the stadium. So that's just to put that in perspective. But it still was Toch Shiva. Now, I have a set of marmakomos here. I didn't make copies for everyone because it is not easy to read. There's a handwritten psak that was given to Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman. Now, really, Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman himself is an Adam Gadol Ma'od, and he's a bar hachi to make a psak himself. It seems he was staying by the house of a yid named Rav Shlomo Lesson in Lakewood. His father was Rav Yaakov Lesson, big Baal Musar, hailed from Slobodka. And this Rav Lesson, who Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman is staying by, is a brother-in-law to a big posek in Lakewood of Simcha Bunim Kom. He has a whole series of art scroll halachic svarim. Amongst them, he recently, in the past few years, published a sefer in Hilchos Avelos. Very, very good sefer in Hilchos Avelos. Most Avelim know the Morning in Halacha, the art scroll book. Simcha Bunim Kones is a little more concise, and some people find it better. Art scroll book on Avelos by Simcha Bunim Kones. So somebody who knows the sugya of Avelos, one. And if you look at the beginning of the psak, he doesn't just say he did it by himself. He consulted with Rabbi Sion Cook of Eretz Yisrael. Who's Rabbi Sion Cook? He's a son-in-law of Rabbi Yitzchak Radinsky, Zatzal, a big tzaddik in Bnei Brak, grandson of the Torres Avram, who was murdered by the Nazis, the Mashgiach of Slovakia. He himself is a Talmud Muvlak of Rabbi Yoshev and wrote multiple svarim of Rabbi Yoshev, which we'll get to. We did some research. What they did was they gave this psak over to Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman, what they felt he could and can't do at this event. And I'll quickly go through the psak. What's interesting is the psak is the I'll call halachic directive. It's telling him the sikkum, the final psak, what to do. But it does not have with it it's not tshuva, where you see clearly the basis of why they did that. So that itself, now it could be they're very smart. They realize some people might make trouble. So they decide not to expose a tshuva and the reasoning behind it. They just wrote a halakha directive. Also, they're just, telling over practically what to do. So they wrote over halachas to Rav Meir Tzvi. If you look at it, it's handwritten, so not so simple to read. But first thing they tell Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman is that the whole time he should be without regular shoes and with his torn beged, which was there. You see the pictures of him. He was there in like sandals. You see his socks. Yeah. He could sit on a regular chair. He's 94 years old. It's very hard for him to sit on the floor.
He might have already had that psak even in the house.
Yeah. Now, it actually did seem from that because there were multiple people. I think the people that said came in from Eretz Yisrael to Menachem Avol. A lot of people went to Menachem Avol the week. Yeah, he was sitting, in a chair. I'll come back to the Gimel. The Gimel talks about Yidaber Divrei Chizuk u'Musar V'Shlo Aharbos Istam Drosh. He should talk specifically words of Musar and Chizuk, but not give a fancy drasha. I'll come back to that. He says, before, they shouldn't, the way at these events, when an Adam Gadol walks in, mamish, the band starts playing, and the rafters start dancing. For such an Adam Gadol, they make a big to-do. They said this should not be done when he comes in. Just they were allowed to announce that the Rosh Hashiva came in. People could stand up. What ended up happening was he walked in, and the crowd said, the announcer even said, Amakam Minachem Etzchem. Mamish, it was a stadium of people doing Nicham Avelim to an Adam Gadol. It's also quite amazing. He got up there. I'll say that in a second. Look at the next line. Ukadai Himefsha Shemaron Yaschol in his drasha that before that. Yeah, after the drasha, he should leave right away. Okay, they did that too. And before I get to the last one, he started his drasha, and the first thing he said wasn't even his own Avelos. He spoke about the fact that he's an Avelos. But he actually said, which is also a whole, you could debate it on the whole topic of an event like this. This is a huge simcha, a huge event. But Klal Yisrael was mourning, was still b'toch shiva over Gershon Edelstein. So Meir Tzvi Bergman's first line is, we're all in Avelos over Meir Tzvi Bergman's, we're all in Avelos over the death of the Gadol Hador of Gershon Edelstein. And then he said, I'm also personally in Avelos over my son. Also quite a perspective given over by Adam Gadol. And the last thing they write, it's Kedai that the Rosh Hashiva, Meir Tzvi, gives over. The Lashon they write, he should start his drasha, the kivan dehu davar choshav ma'od. It's very hard to read the language. L'chazik b'nei Torah, because it's such a big deal to give chizuk to b'nei Torah, motulo lavo afil b'toch shiva. It's motor for him to come here even during the shiva. So they want him to spell out that heter that he has. Now, to be honest, the last one, play back the tapes. It's all recorded. You can see what he said. I don't remember what exact language he used, if he did that or how he said that. But the first thing that hit me, it was pretty interesting. We were, I knew about this event. I knew about this issue. I knew that Meir Tzvi Bergman was going to give the drasha. I saw this psak from Simcha Bun Kom came out probably the day of the event. Before the event, I saw this already. That Sunday night during the event, I wasn't at the event. I was sitting and learning. We're learning. Have to be learning Mesachas Moed Katan. Can you imagine what I happened to be up to the night of this drasha, of this event? The halacha of teaching Torah, toch avelos, toch shiva, to the rabbin. No joke. That's literally what I was up to. Rush, Perak Beis, Simon Beis. Gemara later on, we looked up Chaf Aleph. I'm like, wow. He just like, this is happening right there in Lakewood, and we're Miami, the call. This is what we're learning. So at that point, I knew what my topic was going to be this week. So the first thing that hit me, myself and my chavrusa, or Regila, was, it's very interesting. The way the psak was given to Meir Tzvi Bergman, is he could say divrei chizuk and musar. If you look the way poskim write up, what could you learn on Tisha B'Av? What could a person learn when he's in Avelos? An Avel does not learn Torah. What could you learn on Tisha B'Av? A person in Avelos. They do say divrei chizuk and musar. You could do that. So the whole heter they gave him to speak, they say beferish, and not to do a drasha, just divrei chizuk and musar.
Story time all day.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
The entire, I'm saying.
Okay, I'm not giving advertisements for other things, but you're right. There are there are lots of divrei chizuk which is available today. Rabbi Shapiro has his Shmir Salashon. Yeah. Anyway, but if you go through the Gemaras, which we'll see in a second, that's not so simple to write the psak like that. If you look on your sheets, first thing the Gemara says, right? The Gemara Moed Katan Daf Chaf Aleph. But also likros b'Torah Nevi'im Ksuvim. It's also for an avel to read Tanakh, Lishlos b'Mishnah Medrash. If many people, the rabbim need him, in a nimna, he doesn't hold back. And the Gemara tells a story. Umaisa umeis beno Rabbi Yossi b'tzipari. The son of Rabbi Yossi was nifter. V'nichnas l'beis hamedrash v'darash kol hayom kula. His son died, and he gave a drasha the whole day. So the Gemara does talk about a precedent of people teaching Torah where it's begeder rabim tzrichim lo for such a thing. Now, when we saw this, Chavrusa was saying, L'chora, why are they only mattering him to say divrei chizuk and musar? The heter, the Gemara says, seemingly the heter they're using is the heter of rabim tzrichim lo. There's a stadium of people that are waiting for him to give a drasha. Then he can learn anything. He give a full-fledged drasha. And Pashtas, I listened to the entire drasha. It was a full-fledged drasha. He gave a beautiful drasha. Meir Tzvi Bergman is known for being able to weave together Chazal, Shas, Bavli, Yerushalmi, everything. And this gave such a beautiful drasha. It's hard to say he just gave divrei chizuk and musar. It was a drasha. It was traveling around Shas. It wasn't short. So, Pashtus, I understand that because the heter of Rabim Tzrichim Lo is not limited to divrei chizuk and musar. Why did they write that? I'm not sure. But then, here's where the situation blew up. Okay, so far, come Sunday night or Monday when I was had a few minutes able to listen to the drasha. So I heard the drasha, I understood. Okay, I saw it didn't look exactly the way they wrote up the directive that you should only do divrei chizuk and musar. Okay, but I understood. Meir Tzvi is his own man and could do. And Pashtus, the Gemara says, you have a heter rabim tzrichim lo, you could give a full-fledged drasha. Yes, Eli, you had a point?
Yeah, I was going to say that he gave that svara for the chizuk because it's a tzorah. So I don't think it's a big stretch that you apply the same svara and say that why is it Talmud Torah just as much as it's tzorah?
Okay, so we'll talk about that in a moment. Excellent. Now, Lamaisa, it emerged over the past couple of days that one of the current Rosh Hashivas of Torah V'das, Yitzchak Lichtenstein, wrote a 5-page letter to Rav Simcha Bunim Cohen. Now, I assume this was originally intended to be private, but in the digital age, you got to know if you write something on a hot topic, it's going to get out there. And sure, oh boy, it did. It seems one website had it up and they pulled it down, but it's going all around the world. By now I had, multiple copies people were sending me as soon as they heard the topic of my share. They were sending me topics since Friday. So I got this on Friday. I went through it. I showed it to a few people. And Rav Lichtenstein takes a strong position against everything that was done. For the record, I don't know if Rabbi Lichtenstein was there. I assume based on this letter, he probably was not. One of the many Rosh Hashivas in attendance, I don't know that he was. But there was strong attack against him. I'm going to go through some of his points. But before I even touch it, just to realize, look, I'm not getting involved. It's above my pay grade. Nashim Chashuvim are debating this. But to put in perspective, the event was an event attended by Gedolei Rosh Hashiva. I saw sitting there right in the front was one of the Gedolei Poskim in America, perhaps in the world today. Moshe Heinemann was sitting right there. I didn't hear of anyone who, dafka because of this issue, was mocha and did not go to the event. Not all the Rosh Hashivas of the world were at this event, but many Chashuv ones were. I did not hear of anyone protesting because of that event. This was done b'fnei Am v'Eda. So Halgufa, Lichtenstein writes, it's potential michshal. People could become mekom halachas of avelos, and therefore he chose to fight and speak up about it. Okay, Lamaisa is very important. Obviously, you can't be Madame Lamosa, you can't compare in general, especially in a case where you don't know the facts, which is this case. especially Hilchos Avelos. The Gemara says actually in your days in Moed Katan that Dina Avelos are Karos. Their type of halachas is very, very hard to compare one halacha to another. Halachas very much change on a dime, and more so than any other halachas. Dina Avelos are very, very tricky. So for sure, and people have such shaylas, a shayla needs to be asked. On this topic, if you look up Mesichah Bunim Kon, that's the first thing he writes. You can't get a clear psak. Could someone teach for the Rabbin Torah in his English book, Hilchos Avelos? He says you must ask a Rav. It's a big shayla, not clear. Now, one of the issues, if you look, the Ramah, for example, Paskin's Law Halacha, second Maramakum in the sheets, says, V'yachol liposik iser v'heter l'yachid hashol aso. A person in Avelos, a person toch shiva, could paskin iser v'heter in ein acher erolhu. If he's the only one, v'tzrichim lo, need him. I remember when Rabbi Yashav was in Avelos, he paskin shilas. Because who's going to answer the world shilas if Rabbi Yashav wasn't available? So during Shiva, he paskin shilas. The Ramah does add, Aval Asr Lomer Halacha L'Talmidav. It's Asr to teach halacha, to teach Torah to one's Talmidim. V'chein Nohagim, and that is the minhag. Aval Bishi Yesh Mekilim, even though there are those who make them. So Posh Pshat the Ramah scales back the heter of the Gemara that no, Psak Halacha yes, Stam teaching Talmidim not. Rev Yitzchak Lichtenstein in that tshuva, one of the things he writes, he makes a point in Mavar B'Dvarav. He's talking about the Ramah. The Asal Rav Aval Olamin in Talmidim. V'chein Nagu, the Lo Mikri Rav Talmidim Rabim Tzrichalo. Just because he's a great Rebbe does not mean it's Begeder Rabim Tzrichalo. V'nei Pashat Talmidim Eino To'elos Gadol B'zeh Sh'Rabim Yom Losam. There's no greater to'eles. Ikka to'eles gdola. There's a tremendous benefit if their Rebbe teaches them. Over chozeh, pasuk Ramah, lo mikri rabim tzricham lo. Why mishum defsher bachrini? You know why we don't say every Rebbe, every Rosh Yeshiva should go in during Avelos, Toch Shiva, and teach in Yeshiva? Wouldn't it be the best thing for the Talmidim to have their Rebbe, not some substitute? Teretz says we don't do that. Sof go sof. A substitute is called Efsher Bachrini. That's Rabbi Yitzchak Lichtenstein's take. If you look further down, I brought all his bays. He says, are we going to paskin such a thing in La Halacha that Rebbeim could go into yeshiva? Ramah says we don't. Ein nolgan kain. V'shemanu misha asa kain. Lichtenstein says he didn't hear anyone did this. V'chazina rabbanim kishasi dav dihachi. We didn't hear older rabbanim doing this. Like a vercha, someone told me over Shabbos, two interesting psakim. Victor Miller, Toch Shiva, did go and teach his classes. So, okay, I don't know if Lichtenstein knew of the story or not, but a person who was there saw it. I got Aid Me Pied. Told me about it over Shabbos. I also heard a person said his father was a Rav in England, the more modern shul, and he also taught in a modern school. And he was going to go in during Shiva because there weren't too many people who could do the job that he was doing. He was going to go in, but the postic of Manchester told me he shouldn't go in because people might learn to be Mekel. About them will say, hey, if the rabbi goes in teaching the school, I could go to work. Again, the same type of issue, people learning the wrong psak. So that's why this Rav in England didn't do it.
That's very simple from America.
Right.
This is father.
Who?
One of us related to
Taka. Very good. Shh. Very good point. Right? The Mesichah Bunim Kon is Mishpacha, right? I believe he's a grandson. Mesichah Bunim Kon is a grandson of Victor Miller. So Taka, the point of that Victor Miller himself did this definitely played a role. Very good point. Lamaisa, what is with Liechtenstein comes out. Sof Dover, he has a few other points. He talks about going into basis. Mishta, Katsarti Daiti Milhavin, I don't know, my das is too small to understand. If Efshal Lahater La'avil Likanis the basis Simcha, the Lidrosh B'divrei Torah, of Neiruvos, what right does he have to go in? Vol Eda Lamole to Simcha Bun Kon L'Chafesh Terim. Why do you have to find the Terim? Vol Mikli Beis Mishnah. That's not called a Beis Mishnah because he's not playing music when he walks in. The Gamatayim Demar, Havi Rabban Tzrichim Lo. What do you mean? Someone else could do it. Even if you tell me someone else can't do it. So use technology. Let him record from his house. And on Zoom, have a video. But why do you need to go in to a big simcha like that? And I showed this tshuva to some anashim chashuvim, and they said that the questions that Rabbi Lichtenstein is asking definitely not easy to answer. I would say one interesting thing I would like to add one thing to the fray. I looked up last night. I was able to track down. Rabbi Tzion Kluk has a sefer in Hilchos Avelos, which is for the most part direct quotes or summaries of quotes, questions and answers that he asked to Rabbi Yosef. Within that sefer, I didn't have a chance to put it on the Marmakomos, but there are I can make copies, put it on online. The Marmakomos. Rabbi Yosef was asked a couple of shilas. One question he was asked was, now it's not clear, was the shaila toch shiva or navelos, and that's a big difference. He's talking about first the Rosh Hashiva being mishtatif in a Shava Brachos and speaking at a Shava Brachos, giving a drasha at a Shava Brachos. Shava Brachos is the base of Mishnah, and giving a drasha there. And at first it seems like the drasha was an element, if it's within Shiva to Shava teaching Torah. If it's post Shiva, it seems like the Shava might have been an issue of being more mishtatif in the Shava Brachos by giving a drasha. Not just coming there, not just sitting there, but he's actively involved. He's speaking. And Lamaisa, Ach Bechozos Hiskim Shemoter Af Lidrosh. Rabbi Yosef gave a heter for someone, for sure Toch Avelos. Right? But perhaps even Toch Shiva, big difference. To Darshan of Tnaishli Yeshiru B'Shoshin Nimtzasham. As long as they don't sing when he's there, one would be allowed to give a drasha. Similarly, he asked about a case of a big supporter of the yeshiva whose child is getting married. Could the Rosh Yeshiva come to such a situation? And
the first 3 days?
no, so it's not clear. He might be past that, might be Toch Shloshim, post Shloshim. Lav Dafka here is talking about Toch Shiva. But here the reasoning. The reasoning that he allows for these things is part and parcel of your job. Part of the job of Rosh Hashiva is Kavod Torah, and doing things for Kavod Torah, doing things at Tzorach HaYeshiva. And the Mela,
that could work the other way too.
Yeah.
It's part of his job. Maybe he shouldn't be doing it because it's his job.
right. But his job is not just he's a banker, he's a Rosh Hashiva. I wonder what the psak would be. Let's say the scenario is the following. Okay? Let's say the Lakewood Yeshiva had one Rosh Hashiva. They're having this big event, this Adirei Torah event, which Stam is costing the yeshiva just to set up an event like this. Talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, it's not a once-in-a-lifetime event when they had one last year, but it's a pretty big event. And let's say they had one Rosh Hashiva, just to make the case simpler. They had one Rosh Hashiva, and the same type of thing. He was Toch Shiva, and this event is happening. You can't cancel the event last minute. Look, they didn't cancel the event because of Gershon Edelstein was lifted. Could he go to that event and speak? And he was the main speaker. I could hear it, Sada Rabbi Yosef would matter. Perhaps. I've seen similar shilas. Again, not Toch Shiva. Toch Shiva is a whole other scenario. I don't have a Raya Machrachas. I don't have an absolute proof. But the concept of a Rav doing something, this is his yeshiva, Lamaisa, here, it's not Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman's yeshiva, but he was appointed as the yeshiva to be their spokesman, to speak on their behalf. And the lashon they use is big divrei chizuk. So adayin tzarachian, but it's quite fascinating shaila about teaching Torah in a situation of avelos, most particularly talking to Shiva. But I want to end with an amazing story. Amazing story. Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman years ago was very close to many Gedolim. It's mentioned in Chazon Ish. I think the Chazon Ish made his shidduch. Stipler, obviously his father-in-law Rav Shach, was close to Rav Hutner. Rav Hutner told him the following very interesting story. It says this over in Shir. Hutner enjoyed so much being at Gedolim meetings together with Reb Aaron Kotler. What did he enjoy so much about being with Reb Aaron Kotler? He said when Reb Aaron Kotler said the word Torah, he said it with such passion. His blue eyes were burning. Like it was a sight to see. And Rav Hutner admitted that at these meetings, he would steer the conversation so Rav Aaron would have to say that word. He sort of put him on the spot because he just enjoyed, it was a tanug, every time he heard Rav Aaron say the word Torah. Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman tells over that story, but contrasts it to another story that happened to him. Meir Tzvi Bergman for many years, Alan, we probably have a lot of time you post, right? Different people come and, to the neighborhood. We have a parlor meeting for this Rosh Yeshiva, that Rosh Yeshiva. Most of the time, even small yeshivas, if they have a parlor meeting, if they have some type of event, it's not just a Rosh Yeshiva coming. It's an executive director. It's some people in the community setting up a thing. There's a little bit of an entourage. This Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman fundraised for years and decades the old-fashioned way. He went by himself, would not spend yeshiva money for another person or this, did it all himself. And how did he travel? So I remember growing up in Brooklyn, there were these little buses, shuttles, Lahavdal, you see this, the Miami bus, a Zachin Vey, you never see a from a Yid on a Miami bus. Those little shuttles that go in between here and there, that different segments of the community use. Right? There's a little bus like that, Hanukkah of bus line, go between Borough Park and Williamsburg. And when he would fundraise in Borough Park and Williamsburg, he would go in these little shuttle buses. So one day he's waiting for the bus, because that's how he traveled from Borough Park to Williamsburg. He's sitting by the bus stop, he's learning, and guess what happens? It starts pouring rain. Us in Florida know what it means to be caught in pouring rain. And Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman, look, what can he do? He's standing on the bus. You usually walk by the B11 bus stop, towards Borough Park. You wait over there. And you get one of these things. He's waiting in the pouring rain. And the bus stop is right there, traffic light turns red, and the car pulls up. A nice Lincoln, rolls down the window. Those are from Jew. But this story goes back decades ago, when the appreciation for Torah is not the same thing that it is today. And a Jew looks out, this Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman, sizes him up as a quote-unquote Shnur Rosh Yeshiva, sitting there at the bus stop, learning, and mockingly says to him, Taira, Taira, and drives away. To his credit, Rav Meir Tzvi says over the story, as just a contrast of the difference of what one word of Torah. You say the same word, but from a different perspective. Rav Meir Tzvi said, imagine if this Yid would have heard Reb Aaron Kotler say the word Torah. You'd have a different appreciation. But I take from that story, if there's a Rosh Yeshiva in the world today that deserves Kavod Torah, it's someone who's suffered bizyonos for Torah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu worked out in his world that Lamaisa, Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman came to speak at a huge event, biggest crowd I'm sure he ever spoke to, 30,000 people. His son was Nifter. His son was Nifter on the flight. Mishpacha magazine line was jinxed cover story was called Joyous Journey. By the time he got there, it wasn't a joyous journey. But if anyone deserved the Kavod Torah of thousands of people, it was somebody who suffered bizyonos for Torah. And Ad Khan, not so nice for people to debate this topic in the public with the Tzvi Bergman. It's an important halacha to talk about, but anyone deserves Kavod Torah. It's a type of Rosh Hashiva like Tzvi Bergman. It should be a schus for him and for all of Klal Yisrael, the Kavod Torah that we have in this generation. Thank you very much. Tune in next week. B'ez Hashem.